if ever as an employee you feel like you are being bullied, firstly, document all of those things that you believe that is happening to you.
Good afternoon and welcome to Masiviwe, Let's Be Heard, a movement to bring about better healthcare for all. And each month we have conversation about mental health and how to better manage it. My name is Siwaphiwe Myataza-Mzantsi. I am a creative director at Mental Port, a program that supports families of those who are mentally ill. Today, I'll be having the first of 3 conversations with relationship family therapist Merrishia Singh-Naicker. Our conversation will focus on mental health in the workplace. Welcome, Merrishia. Glad you could talk to me.
Thank you, Siwa, and thank you for the invite. I'm excited to talk with you today on this important topic.
We know October is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I have seen how in the workplace it's still a taboo topic to talk about mental health issues. People who are affected by mental health challenges, they tend to shy away to talk. And I wonder if, have you seen any shift in the way mental health is discussed in the workplace?
Yes, you're quite right, Siwa. There has been quite a lot of stigma attached to talking about issues of mental health in the workplace. And this has been so for many years. However, there has been a shift, and this is largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic, where it became so important for whether it was the workplace or whether it was families, communities, to really recognize the impact of our mental health on our well-being, in our relationships, and then our work and our job life as well. So during the pandemic, we experienced, just so many different heartaches, and one of the big impacts was within the workplace, where people lost their jobs, where many people had to work remotely, who had to work from home, had to work online. And that kind of gave employers the indication, okay, we need to shift our thinking about how do we help our employees to be able to still work well, but then also kind of take care of some of the mental concerns or issues that many people faced through the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So there has been a shift to at least recognize it. What may have not shifted is how do we deal with our mental health issues and resources provided for that.
Mm. And I'm glad that you're touching on the impact that COVID had in the workplace, because I think at some point, even managers were exposed as perhaps people who also don't know how to deal with mental health in a way. And I wonder, how do we then empower them and educate them about ways to better assist employees when it comes to mental health issues?
Absolutely. And I think for many managers or just people in leadership positions in general, who really found themselves at a place of how do I deal with this? Because a lot of our training and some of the workshops doesn't often deal with how do we help our employees with mental health issues. So one of the important things is to become more knowledgeable as a manager. So be able to either go for a workshop or a course or training on what are mental health issues, what is mental health concerns, and how can you deal with it in appropriate ways in the workplace. And then provide the support for your staff as well. So provide trainings, provide workshops, destigmatize it in your workplace. Be a role model as a manager. Setting healthy boundaries, even as a manager, taking breaks, doing lunch breaks. So there's many different ways as a manager that they can really improve their understanding and then improve their implementation in mental health in the workplace.
Yes, Merrishia, and there's always an issue as well of wanting to isolate workplace from the daily lived experiences, and I believe you just cannot separate what's happening at work and the daily lived experiences. For instance, we know that petrol is up, everything is going up, but salaries are still the same, and we still expect employees to be productive. And I think there's a gap there, and it's a mental strain, especially to employees. And I'm not sure how we could slowly introduce conversations around just the financial assistance as well, and how it could close the gaps that some employees are perhaps faced with at the moment, because they are really challenged people who are toxic in the workplace, not because they want to, but because they are faced with all these other challenges outside of the workplace, and it affects now their work.
Absolutely, Siwa, and thank you so much for mentioning that. I think there has been such a strain when we don't realize the interconnectedness between our social, structural, political lives, and then also our home lives, and how that impacts to our workplace life. And the longer we think that it doesn't affect each other, the more harm it can do. So most definitely for us to, for employers to recognize that employees, their work life, their social, psychological well-being will impact the way they are productive and the way they function at work. So just the example that you gave, the financial strain that many people experience with the rising cost of basic living, whether it is, transport costs, food costs, and when that increases, often our income doesn't increase. And so then what can we do in order to help our employees? And so first is to be open and have good open communication about it. Create safe spaces in the workplace to talk about these issues, for your employees to have a voice to say, this is what I'm going through, and to be able to create at least a safe space to openly discuss that. And then to maybe discuss how can we support or provide resources. It may not always be financial, but for example, if someone is now having to take, for example, 2 taxis to get to work, or need to take another means of transport just to save on transport costs, and they are 10 minutes late, can employers be more understanding in simple things like that, in shifting and changing? If they are able to work from home, and if the employer can allow that, and if that would help them save on transport costs, then provide the means for them to be able to do that. So there needs to be creativity and innovative ways to see how they can still support employees to work smartly, and then to also help them through this, financial crisis that many people are going through.
I always believe that a happy workplace is always dependent on the attitude of online managers. And when you talk about, I'm now thinking, what is a safe space versus a gossip? Because sometimes you tend to openly chat with your manager, thinking that you are really sharing for him or for her to understand, and the next thing you're walking down the passage and you hear someone talking about the very same thing you shared with the manager, and you thought it has to be, it's something you share with him or her only. So I'm not sure if you could perhaps help us give tips to how managers can then take this information, this personal information, and protect it and not use it against employees, because it does happen, and that's where bullying is introduced, where you are perhaps oversharing to managers, and now they use it against you at a later stage.
Yes, and that unfortunately does happen, where you share personal things that have happened in your life or experiences that you're going through, and then that is not kept in confidence or in confidentiality. And it's important that when you do share as an employee, that your intentions are made known, that you're sharing this in confidence to the manager so that they have better understanding, and that you would appreciate that this is not obviously broadcast to the larger team unless you're comfortable with certain details that need to be shared. And managers should not breach that. They should be able to keep things in confidence. If at any time that managers do need to share about an employee that's going through a tough time, it should only be details that this employee is going through a tough time. It may impact these things, but this is the support, or this is the way forward. And it should not become a gossip aspect or should be used against you in bullying or harassment. Now, if it ever goes to that place where, the line is crossed, where you've shared something, confidentiality in that space, and it is then broadcasted in a way that does and brings harm, then you have every right as an employee to follow the protocols, to bring attention to that and to report that. Because that obviously, especially when it comes to bullying is a form of harassment, and workplaces should have policies against harassment. And if they don't, employers, please make sure you have that. So managers, please make sure that you have health and safety regulations in place. You have anti-harassment policies in place. And that will help employees as well to know the protocol and the route to follow if that ever happens to them.
And I was wondering, Merrishia, what are ways to deal with bullying? Because I think most of us, especially young professionals who are excited, we're coming from university, all we know is positivity around us, and you get to a workplace and you don't know whether you're the problem or it's just the environment itself. It's not allowing you to grow. You feel like you're being bullied, and sometimes it can contribute to self-doubt at times, and it's really a threat when it comes to growth. How do we better deal with this vast problem in a workplace?
Yes, thank you, Siwa. And when you think about bullying, you think this is something that only happens in schools, but you're quite right. People, when they come into the workplace, are quite surprised at how much bullying does happen in the workplace and how there should be zero tolerance for bullying, that it should not be happening. So some of the ways is that if ever as an employee you feel like you are being bullied, is to firstly document all of those things that you believe that is happening to you. Often what happens is you may say, oh, you know what, this was done to me. And sometimes the people or the bullies can sometimes say, you know what, I think you understood it wrong, or I think you didn't get what I was trying to say. So in order for you not to do that self-doubt, like, did that really happen? Or maybe I thought, maybe they're right, maybe it didn't really happen that way. So if you notice a pattern, and with bullying, it's generally you notice a pattern. It's not just a once-off incident. You find a pattern. The person that bullies, often uses these tactics. So you recognize the pattern and you start documenting that. And then again, if there are protocols in your workplace, follow those protocols to be able to report this. If you can, and you are comfortable with speaking to the bully, whether it's your manager, whether it's another team colleague, take time to sit with them and say, these are the things I have noticed and recognized that you have done. And I do not appreciate it, and I do not accept it, and I'm not happy with it. And I'm asking you to change these ways. And if you notice that it doesn't change, then you definitely need to report it. Because again, bullying is a type of harassment. In no way should you made to feel less than for anything about yourself and how you carry yourself in the workplace. So there's a difference when it comes to constructive criticism, because sometimes they will say, oh no, it's just constructive criticism. But this bullying really means it's harmful, hurtful behavior. There's a consistent pattern to it. And often the person that bullies will make you feel like it was your fault and you deserve to be bullied.
I'm glad you're giving us those tools, Merrishia, because I've been in the journalism industry, and I've seen how journalists are now changing careers, because they are claiming, no, I cannot take this bullying, yet I'm getting, I'm not even getting enough salary for all of this that I'm doing. And I wonder, when one changes a career now, what kind of challenges and the anxiety they are faced with, and how do we then assist such a young professional who was once excited about working for a certain institution and now is finding himself or herself having to change a career, and it comes with anxiety. I'm sure there has to be ways to deal with it, with such anxiety and pressure.
Yes, Siwa, and it is hard when this happens to you, and I can only imagine, when you go through this experience and then you have to leave, and I guess for your own sanity and well-being, not to remain in a toxic environment, but then it does bring with it, like you said, a whole lot of other stresses, a whole lot of other anxieties of feeling inadequate, of your self-esteem being knocked, of you feeling like, I can't live up to the many expectations, especially if you are the one that have dependents and you need to bring in a financial, into your home. And so it does result in great anxiety, and sometimes can lead to, depression and anger, and sometimes even post-traumatic stress when you think about all of the things that you've been through in that environment, in that toxic environment. Mm-hmm. And so there's important things to deal with that, is bringing awareness about how you are experiencing anxiety. And so sometimes you may not even make the connection that I'm feeling this way because of what I've went through, because sometimes people just expect you to be okay. Like, just get over it now, go and find something else. So become more aware of, okay, I really am going through this issue, this mental health issue. I'm feeling anxious, and recognize it in yourself, whether it's physical symptoms, whether it comes out in different ways. So that's one very important thing. And then acknowledge it. Sometimes it's hard to even say, I am feeling anxious because of what was done to me. And just give your space to say, it's okay. This is what I'm feeling now. What are the healthy ways I can deal with it? So the other aspect is to recognize the unhealthy ways you may have been dealing with it, and then try and start to institute some healthy ways to deal with that.
And there has been a lot of talk about gaslighting, and I wonder what it is and what does it look like in the work context?
Okay, so gaslighting is when psychological manipulation happens. And we spoke a little bit about this earlier when we talked about bullying, but this is unique in the sense that the person or the gaslighter makes you feel like, or makes you question, did I really go through what I said I went through? Or creates that self-doubt, or creates the thing that you are crazy. This didn't really happen. It didn't really go that way. So for example, you may have sent in, say, your report on Tuesday, and you had it on your manager's desk on Tuesday. And your manager says, no, you didn't. It only came in, on Wednesday. And you then start to question yourself, did I really? And he says, no, definitely. And that's it. And you think, okay, no, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I didn't hand it in on time, So there's a way of you self-doubting yourself. You start to believe like you were wrong. And the gaslighter makes you think that it's your fault, and makes you think your memories are not correct. The way you are believing it is completely inaccurate. And so that's what gaslighting is, and that's how it can play out in the workplace.
And as we wrap up, what words of encouragement and tips would you give to HR managers and leaders in the workplace about helping employees who are struggling with their mental health?
I would definitely say to HR managers and leadership to really destigmatize, the issue of mental health, and especially in the workplace. That for them to show and kind of lead by example that we need to be able to have an open, honest, a good communication of mental health in the workplace, that everybody experiences it sometime in their life, and that there should be some type of support that's implemented, whether it's training, whether it's workshops, that's given to employees so that they can understand their own mental health better, and that they can also implement ways in which they can do better in taking care of themselves, which will then improve their productivity at work.
Thank you so much, Merrishia. I really appreciate you joining us today, and I believe that everyone had a lot to take from this conversation. If you haven't done so, you can follow us on all social media platforms and use our handle at MasiviweZA, or go to our website masiviwe.org.za. Nisale kakuhle makhaya.